welcome to Awake Women. My name is Lorraine Flaherty.
I'm Sally Poinsett-Nash.
I'm Gemma Bliss.
And I'm Alexandra Winman.
And today we're going to be talking about crystals. Each of us have bought a collection of our favourite crystals, and I'm by no means an expert, so we're going to be opening up to the knowledge that we have, but we know that crystals are not just beautiful to have and to hold, but they are actually holders of knowledge and information and quite incredible with the resources that can be generated from them, so the technology that they're actually used for. So we're going to share with you some of our favourite pieces and some stories that we all collectively have about our adventures with crystals. So shall we start with you?
Well, first of all, I just want to start by saying that crystal technology is very ancient. They used to use crystal technology in Lemuria and Atlantis. And what we have on the planet at the moment with this awakening consciousness is we also have a rising of the energy of the crystals, again, of the power of the crystals. The crystalline grids within the Earth are waking up. There's a lot more light coming into the planet from solar flares, galactic energy, but also from the crystals within the Earth. And new crystals have been discovered in recent years, such as sugilite and Lemurian seed quartz crystal. So these are now making their way to the surface of the planet. It's like the roots of the crystalline grids are coming up through the surface of the planet, ready to be used for healing and awakening and to support us on this journey. So I didn't really, I have so many, I'm a crystal addict, not crystal meth,
not that sort of crystal.
And you know, I have new crystals all the time. I recently bought this petalite ring. My favourite crystal, I think, of all time is Egyptian gold tektite or Libyan gold tektite. I think it has to be, if I could choose one crystal that really resonated with me, it would be that. And I was wearing one in our previous video, but I haven't actually got one with me. But I've brought a Kundalini citrine quartz, which obviously supports the awakening of the Kundalini energy, which our Gemma will know all about with her Kundalini yoga. I've brought, this is one of my favourites, it's a smoky quartz, and I often use this for crystal communication, crystal scrying. It's very, it's almost like a lens when you look through it, and I just love how smooth it is. It's one of my favourites for scrying. And I recently purchased this labradorite, which is also said to be a teacher's stone. There's all sorts of different qualities. But the way I connect with crystals, because each of them will have their own metaphysical healing properties, which we know, like rose quartz for love, and you know, Laurie's got a beautiful obsidian, which is great for grounding and protection. But the way that I connect with crystals is through the individual crystal, and because I teach channeling and communication with different consciousnesses, each crystal has its own personality, much like every different human being. So you can actually tune into your crystal and find out what it has to say, or what it's come to help you heal with. It's a bit like, you know, when you go into a crystal shop, the best way to choose your crystal is to just see which resonates. You might have 5 pieces of labradorite in front of you, but one of them you might find stands out more than the others, and it's not just the way it looks, it's actually the energy of it. It's probably sitting there going, pick me, pick me, pick me. So I find that they all have their own resonance, and a way to connect with it is just hold it in your left hand, close your eyes, tune in. I actually ask the crystal, just through my own thoughts, to amplify its energy and to surround me with its energy, to fill my aura with the energy of that crystal. And then if you tune in, the first way to connect with it is just through your feelings, really. So just start by feeling the vibration of the crystal, and it's a really good way to take the qualities of the crystal and to do a healing with it. It's a really simple way to just invite the crystal's energy into your energy field, and then see how you feel afterwards. Cool. So that's my spiel to begin with. More to come. So what about you, Gem? What crystals have you brought with you?
So I went to India at the start of this year for 3 months, and we spent a lot of time up in the Himalayas. And in the Himalayas, we would go on a lot of treks, and sometimes I would be sitting on a rock, and I would just look down, and in the rock that I was sitting on would be garnets, actual whole garnets within the rock. It's such a treasure trove of crystals, and the vibration of that place is, it sings. It's just incredible. And we bought back bags of crystals, but my favourite little crystal that we got from the Himalayas was this little pink kunzite. And the reason that I love it so much is it just sings with my heart. It's even picking it up, it makes me feel so soft.
Can I just go and zoom it in
and
on the
sweet.
camera?
Please do.
I'm coming to you, viewers. See if you can see this.
It is a really special piece. It's very heartwarming and heart-centered, and very valuable, I think, in many levels.
Pocket that. It's beautiful.
Thank you. And then the other two pieces that I have are Herkimer diamonds. And what's special about these ones is that they're fresh from the earth. So a friend of mine went to Brazil, and he went looking for Herkimer diamonds, and they went into a Herkimer diamond cave.
That's huge for a Herkimer.
Right? He put his hand in and he bought this out. And he bought a couple of other ones as well. But this is one of the ones that came.
Wow,
and
it came
it
to you.
sparkles. And what's interesting about it is when you rub it on cloth, it loves it and it just goes, it really sparkles it up. It is like a diamond.
Can I have permission to, always ask
Sure.
permission to touch someone else's
Yes.
crystals too. Oh my gosh, I've never seen a Herkimer diamond this big before, so I don't know if you can see.
So
Sparkly.
Minas Gerais in Brazil is a very big centre for Herkimer diamonds, and that's where
Thank you.
this one came from. And this is a little baby Herkimer that I really love because it has a little eye inside the Herkimer. I think it was probably made from copper or something like that, some other metal inside the Herkimer diamond, but it's another really sparkly little
Beautiful.
absolute jewel from the same friend who bought me this one.
Wow.
So these are my...
And so these, didn't even come through a shop. These are three
These are-
crystals that all came fresh out of the earth.
Came from the earth.
How special!
Yes,
That's
very.
amazing.
Yeah,
I really want to go fossicking for crystal. Is it fossicking? Yeah.
could do.
Frolicking?
We'll use that.
If it's not that, it is now.
What a special thing that this came to you as well.
Yeah.
It's got a heart in it.
Oh, I'll trust you to spot the heart, eh? And this beautiful little collection here.
Yeah, what are you
Yeah,
got
so
for
mine's kind of all rugged. I think rugged is my theme here,
Mm.
apart from this guy. I have always had a thing for rocks ever since I was younger. And I used to turn up at my granddad's house with rocks that had the hairline white or quartz through it. Like, Granddad, we need to break these open. We need to break these open, because I was looking for this inside the rocks. And I never found any. And I kept turning up at my granddad's time and time again.
Right.
Just rocks like Granddad would need, but they were, quite sizable rocks, looking for this. And I used to go looking for fossils and fossiling, because I lived in the West Country, so all the way along that Jurassic coastline. There's loads of interesting things in rocks. And I don't know, I know rose quartz, because I have two pieces of rose quartz here. One was a gift and the other one I got myself. I know this symbolises it's for love and everything else.
Yeah.
It's not why I buy them. I've got two the same here. This is split in half, so this is two. And I've got these two.
What is this? Is this rose quartz?
No, this is not.
Himalayan rock salt.
Oh, that's the salt.
Yes.
It's the salt.
We had a little taste of it.
But again, they're very different. One's
Yeah.
shiny, one's not.
Mm.
But yeah, it's got to be clearly quite rough and ready. My
Yeah.
crystal collection is rough and ready. And then I have a lamp in this.
I've got a lamp in the selenite too.
Yeah, which my
Big
husband
towel.
was horrified when I came home with, asking if I was Clark Kent. And what this Superman situation was now at the side of my bed.
And it's so weird because Andrea, who's
Andrea,
usually on this
yes.
show, sent us a picture of her selenite lamp and it was bright green.
Yeah,
Sweet.
because she wondered if she could actually change it, so she painted the bulb with proper
I mentioned to her at the dinner the Clark Kent
That's
story.
right. That's right.
She then painted it green and put it on
And
her
made it
Instagram.
brown.
Amazing. So, and she can't be with us today because her cat was sick, unfortunately. So we may post a picture of her extraordinary lamp that she has created now with the green. And so, where do you normally get your crystals from?
Again, this was a gift, so I don't know. This one I got this in West London, and then I got these down in the West Country.
Right.
Just wherever. Like, there's nowhere one place that I go. There's no reason. This one, I said to my husband, I've just got a new Dutch bike. Well, actually, it's a really old Dutch bike, but it's super cool. And I said to my husband, I need to go and try the Dutch bike, and I need to swing by this shop in West London. And I felt that I needed to go buy something. And I came out, and of course he had to carry this in his backpack because I'm new on the bike. So can I just put this in your backpack? He's like, what on earth are you doing? I was going to buy the bigger one because I like things to be bigger because I think it makes me look smaller. So I have, I'm very tall, so I have a lot of oversized things in my house. And I just thought actually I can't really put it in the guy's backpack.
No.
Because it was really good. I mean, it was ridiculous.
One that you could actually climb into.
But this one felt better, and I just love the fact that
Yeah, that's beautiful.
it just, I don't know, it just looks like a rock. And
Yeah.
it contains
Hiding.
all of that under the surface, which
Yeah.
Go
I
zoom
love
it in, Laurie.
Yeah.
Our beautiful assistant will show you.
So there's the rock side, and there's the yay.
again, just very much feeling, I suppose, is how
They call them dragon's eggs, these ones, don't they, or something?
you tell me.
So something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, dragon's eggs.
Yeah. Amazing.
Treasure.
So yeah, crystals. So again, I'm somebody that is the same thing. I don't really hold much knowledge about crystals. I've had the crystal book from a long time ago, so we'd get drawn to one and then have to go and read the book, and then of course you have that synchronicity where it just happens to be the thing that you need in that moment in time. That seems to be how they turn up. This one I got when I was up at Mount Shasta, and I'd had some really quite bizarre experiences while I was up there. It was I was on a road trip when I was promoting the book a few years ago, and somehow the energy of travelling, I think long distances on my own in a car, meant that some sort of portal had opened up. I think the solitude, because I don't do the radio, I don't do anything, I'm just alone with my thoughts. Driving for me is like a meditation. And so I was kind of channeling, I was getting messages from kind of Native American ancestors and all kinds of bizarre messages coming through. And I went to Mount Shasta, which obviously is one of the it's a very majestic, very powerful, very beautiful mountain up in Northern California. And it's a very sacred site, traditionally, and I went there and I was meditating. And while I was meditating, again, some really incredible channeled messages came through. And in fact, you had introduced me to Nancy, a woman that lives in the area, and she doesn't have a shop per se, but I think she sells crystals from her kitchen. And it was quite funny because I'd arranged to meet her just after my meditation, and while I was on the mountain, I started to walk back down, getting ready to go and meet her for lunch. And it's quite snowy up there, and there was this sort of meandering path, and this voice that had been telling me various different bits of information that were, very accurate and related to my work, said, you need to take some stones with you. You need to take a couple of stones that are going to represent and anchor the work that you've done here. And I thought, okay, well, you might need to be a bit more specific and narrow it down a bit, because there's quite a lot of stones around, even though part of it's snow covered, but bits of it were open. And as I kept walking, the voice said, well, you'll know. Okay, how am I going to know? So I thought, okay, so I'm wandering, and I'm just looking, and I'm just perusing the stones as I'm going down, and all of a sudden, it was so bizarre because I saw this kind of very black, almost like
Obsidian.
obsidian, this black square very angular stone, and it was sat right next to this almost crystalline, round, very smooth stone right next to each other. I was like, oh, that's like the balance of masculine and feminine. Wow, those must be my stones. Anyway, the next thing I heard this really bizarre sound, and it was this, what is that? And I look up and there's nobody else around, and it's kind of the middle of the day, and there was this 30-foot twister
On the mountain.
on this snow-covered mountain, like spiralling like this.
Doesn't
Like a
surprise
tornado.
me, Dorothy.
Well, my old Wizard of Oz thing, I think, oh my god, what do I do now? And it was doing this. It was, what do I do? Because if do I run? Do I move? Whichever way I was going, you know how you're trying to pass somebody on the stairs, whichever way I was going. And then my intuition said, well, you were guided to those stones for a reason. You were told to find the stones, so just stand next to the stones. So I did, I just stood my ground, I stayed where I was. And it was the bizarrest thing, because the next thing, this twister comes on and then it stops in front of me. And it was just spinning and spinning and spinning, and my hair's being blown. And
How big was it across?
it was
Like big.
It was big. It was really big. I mean, obviously it was quite narrow when it went up to the ground, and then it just went up and up and up and out. And the voice, my inner voice went, "Oh my God, that's really amazing," because it felt like it was the spirit of the mountain in a kind of greeting or in an acknowledgement. Because the voice had been saying thank you for going and treating the site as a sacred site rather than just being a tourist and trundling through it. I had gone there with great reverence and honoured it and done my meditation. And then, and then the next thing, it kind of passed and it went flying down through the trees and then just disappeared, just sort of dissipated. So it's very odd. Anyway, following the thought of being honoured by the spirit of the mountain, my logical voice kicks in and goes, yeah, right, whatever, get over yourself, you're not that special. This thing probably happens all the time up here. It's a high energy site, so this kind of, big build up of energy is probably really common. So, get over it. Anyway, I then head down, get in the car, and I drive to meet Nancy, and I walk into Nancy's kitchen, and not only did she have like this beauty sat on the side, which and again, when people talk about crystals talking to you, I've never really had that. I like them and they're shiny, and this is a citrine that I think is very powerful, and just my quartz that I got when I did the angelic Reiki a long time ago. But she also had a crystal skull in her kitchen, which again I swear I could hear this thing talking. So I purchased this because I felt like I had to, and then Nancy and I were going to go for lunch. And then I honestly I'd seen this, which...
She doesn't do colour or...
And I'm not a sparkly person, really. I mean, a little bit, but not blingy. I'm not blingy at all. And I spotted this as I was going out the door, and I was literally stopped in my tracks. And I was just like, no, that's way too shiny for me. It's beautiful, but it's way too shiny. And then I tried to leave, and I actually couldn't get out the door. It was literally like I was being pulled back to this thing. And it was like, no, you can't go, no, you can't leave. So I was like, no, I couldn't, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll just take it and wear it on special occasions. Yeah, right. So it's a spirit quartz, which apparently I think they're South African. So it's one quartz crystal, and then there's lots of little baby ones that grow around the outside.
Amethyst and citrine, I think, is the combination.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happens with it. Anyway, so I just had to. And interestingly, I have a little Herkimer diamond that was a birthday present that, because it was a bit lonely. So now it has a friend. So I purchased it, and then of course once I put it around my neck, it was just, I kind of knew that it wasn't really coming off, and it hasn't really come off since, and it's very heavy. And I don't take it off at night time either, so there are times when it does almost choke me. But we went for lunch, and so while we were having lunch, and I'm very pleased, I'm there, and I'm very in love with my crystals, which again kind of represented.
What is it? Is it rutilated quartz?
It's an opalescent golden healer quartz.
Wow.
I think. But again, it felt like this represented the experience that I'd had. This was a symbol of that experience, which I think a lot of crystals kind of are. They're the signpost. So whenever I see it, it reminds me of those moments. But over lunch, I said, Nancy, I just wanted to check with you, because she'd been living there for quite a long time. I had this strange experience up on the mountain. And when I described what happened, she looked at me and she went, oh, that was the spirit of the mountain coming to honour you. And then she said, and by the way, no, that never happens. You get the twisters on the, on the plains, but no, that just, it's unheard of. It doesn't happen up here. And so, yeah, it's, my experiences with crystals are, again, I think as we open up more, I think more and more people are having more of this, but you kind of have to have things.
They speak to you, and speaking of like the honouring of the mountain, it's like this relationship between us as humans and the earth, really, isn't it? Like when you go to a sacred site or a place, I'm often guided to bring stones. I have a piece of Mount Shasta as well. I've got the same message in Mount Shasta. We went at separate times, probably about a year apart, and I did my precious wisdom on the mountain as guided there straight after we'd met in Egypt, about 3 months after. And then at the end I got asked as well, please take a stone. I looked down, and the stone that I have, I should have brought it today.
Yeah, I know.
It's shaped exactly like Mount Shasta. It is a stone that looks like Mount Shasta. And interestingly, I also have a piece of Uluru that I brought back when I was about 12 that is shaped just like Uluru. But you're not supposed to take rocks from Uluru. There's a thing that if you take a rock from Uluru, I think it's not, it's frowned upon, or it's meant to give you bad luck or something. But I was completely guided to have that stone, and to me it's really a sacred rock. And I think as long as you're honouring it, because my whole thing is to honour that part of the land through that stone, it's all connected. So I hope it's okay. It hasn't, I always think that one day, because I keep meaning to go back to Uluru, and I feel that one day if I do go back, I may take that stone back. It might be that I've completed my journey with it, but it's all about honouring it. And when you go to a sacred site or a place, there is an exchange of energy. So you're giving gifts of your own light, your own gifts to the land, especially if you go in honouring, or if you do any kind of healing or clearing work there. But the land is also gifting you. So what we found is when we've gone to some of these places, it's triggered old memories or past life memory or anything like that. But you're offered memory, you awaken to your own gifts, because also we have crystals in us. We're crystalline energy. Our cells are crystalline. So they're little communicators.
And they do open up, I think, when we connect back. Sometimes with crystals, I do believe a lot of people talk about actually leaving messages for themselves in crystals, so that when they find it later, it will open up some of the portals.
Yeah, makes sense.
I should have brought my meteorite. I've got an amazing meteorite that is 65 billion years old. And how I found this meteorite was I was teaching, I think it was Angelic Reiki, I was teaching a workshop in Covent Garden a few years ago, and it was when I'd started waking up to all this galactic knowledge and these memories of other lifetimes on other planets and different things going on. And in my lunch break I went into the Covent Garden market and kept being drawn back to there was a picture of a shooting star, and then I kept being drawn back to this guy selling fossils, and he had some crystals and things like that. And I kept going back to this stand, and I looked down and I could see, like, all the ammonite, the crust, the fossilized creatures and stuff like that. But there was something about this picture of this shooting star that I'd seen, and I just knew this guy had something. And I said, well, what have you got here? And he said, oh, I've got everything. I've got stuff that's 100 years old, and I've got stuff that's 65 billion years old. And my whole body went up in goosebumps, and I went, what is 65 billion years old? And he said, hold out your hand. And he put this, it looked like a small rock, but when he put it in my hand, it was so heavy, and it was actually so compressed that it was now metal. And but the energy shot through my arm, and it felt like I'd been given an injection of about 100 cups of coffee. And I was like, whoa! And I said, what is this? And he said, well, I don't go in for the healing thing because I'm a scientist, and he was a guy who used to work for the Natural History Museum as a geologist or a scientist. And he said, but I can feel the energy of that one. And he said, and I just put it down to the fact that it's made from materials that don't come from our planet. And the metals, it was iridium, different types of metal, titanium, iridium, uranium, different things. But this meteorite, it was like, I couldn't let it go. It was like when you said that one was calling you, I couldn't let it go. And I took it back to my workshop. And as I tuned into it in one of the meditations, got this really clear message from my higher self that I had sent this meteorite to myself as a reminder that it had come from me originally. I'd sent it on a trajectory to find it at this time. And I think that we do that. We do have the power to do that. We are time travelers. We're infinite. So yeah, so the rocks don't have to come from this planet either to be magical.
And speaking of meteorite, I noticed, Laurie, you were wearing before quite a bit of moldavite.
I'm a little obsessed. I was hoping to sort of avoid my obsession. Which yeah. So and moldavite, which my ring, my earrings are actually polished versions of it, and my bracelet. And I do have chunks of it, but obviously it's.
Is it your favourite?
It's my favourite of all, and that was a meteorite that landed in Czechoslovakia, and I don't know how many millions of years ago, and it's a very transformative. Have you worked with it at all?
My partner, Nishad, his moldavite is my kunzite.
Okay, so he has the same, and I do think it is in a way a bit of a masculine stone, but I tend to have quite masculine traits, or
Hey, you wore a pink fluffy jumper on the weekend.
I did. I'm trying to be more girly, but yeah, I think it is more of a male energy. It's quite a forceful energy, and it is very powerful. So the first chunk of it that I bought, it was a big necklace, but it was probably like about the size of that one, but flatter. And I was very excited when I put it on. You could really feel the energy of it. It's very, very powerful. And I wore it for about 3 months without taking it off. So I just wore it in bed and I started to feel very odd. And I was having symptoms that were like morning sickness, like nausea and feeling a bit dizzy and just feeling a bit weird. And I really didn't know what was going on. I thought there was something wrong with me. And I kept questioning, what am I feeling? Why am I a bit woozy all over the place? And then one morning I got up and I was tuning, God, I'm feeling that weird feeling again. And the little voice in my head went, just look in the mirror. And of course I looked in the mirror and saw this big green chunk of, we're talking about kryptonite. In a way it almost is like that. So I took it off, and as soon as I took it off I felt better. I felt okay. And so the next day, when I went into, I actually bought it in Stepping Stones, which is in Greenwich, a place where Al and I have both worked at times, which has an amazing array of crystals in there. And I said to the girls, oh my God, that moldavite that I was wearing made me feel sick. I just realised. And they said, oh, we probably should have told you. And I said, told me what? And they said, well, the day before you bought it, this woman came in. She was a slightly older lady, and she tried it on and fainted. She put it around her neck and she fainted in the shop. And
That's a strong piece then.
Yeah, and I said, right. So when I picked it up, none of you thought to mention this fact to me, that I should probably be a little bit careful with this stone. I didn't really know that much about it. I just knew I loved it. Yeah. And they said, oh, sorry, probably. So it does kind of blast you. It does. It's a very.
When we went to Stone Age in Glastonbury, Louis said he fainted wearing it, didn't he, as well? That he'd also had.
So I've built myself up gradually. So I do have a ring and earrings and a bracelet and yeah.
Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, the old moldavite.
No, I like to do things to dive into them.
So that big one that you used to wear, where is that now?
That is, I mean, it's it's safe. It's with a few other little pieces. So I've kind of collected, but it's there. And occasionally I put it on, but I think I'm more acclimatized to it now because I have all of the other pieces. So yeah. So again, pick your pieces wisely, and because crystals do have power, they do have a charge. So if you are picking pieces and you feel the energy, sometimes it's a good idea just to wear them for a little bit at a time until you get used to them. So what would you say is your favourite, other than the pink ones?
Definitely.
But do you have any pieces that you
I wear? Not so much. I wear malas when I teach.
Right.
Mostly things like calcite or quite stony ones, not
Right.
very.
So more earthy.
More earthy and grounding and keep me here.
Yeah.
And now. Yeah. But interestingly, I have a student who comes to my workshops and she's a crystal healer.
Okay.
And she likes to take the theme of the workshop
Right.
and she'll develop a mala around that and we'll put that in the centre of the workshop. Oh, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
The energy that comes off these beautiful malas, and I don't know much about it, mandalas rather. I don't know much about it, but Birta knows and she'll tell me all about the different stones.
Yeah.
Like a crystal grid in the centre of the room.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And she says it's so important to really set your intention with the crystals and to clear them every time that you use them.
Definitely.
She's very strong about
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah, because you can program them, can't you,
Yeah.
with energies?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what
What's
about you, Sally?
What would be your favourite, do you think?
I've had a go. I mean, I've had a go at wearing crystals on
Yeah.
necklaces, and I gifted them to someone else. It just wasn't. I don't know. I think I go out with my force field. I describe it as my force field anyway, and kind of if I'm not grounded and I've suddenly become aware that I've got a lot of energy, it's like I activate that force field.
Right.
My crystals tend to stay in my bedroom, which is somewhere that's my zen. There's a lot of plants,
Right.
whether I don't care whether you're supposed to sleep with plants or not. And yeah, it just, I don't know, it's just my calm area. And I think everything I've had, so the rose quartz, I slept with this one in my hand. This fits perfectly in my hand here. It
You
just,
can sleep with it under your pillow too.
well, I slept holding it every night when my first dog died, because I felt that so much unconditional love had left. And this was like, I couldn't top it up enough, and then I went and got another one.
One for each hand.
Your rock to cling to.
It was, and I'd wake up still holding on to these things.
Amazing.
Yeah, I really needed to top up. So I used both of these when I lost both of my dogs. And I think this is just purifying. This is cleansing. So I think it's just that when I get home and I'm in that zen, it's good to have this locked by my bed, so I'm just recharging overnight, really.
Yeah, lovely.
But yeah, my husband's like a little geology experiment going on over there.
But they're like friends. Like they can be like portals too. This one I actually got from Stone Age in Glastonbury. I spoke about it. I did a series of videos on crystal shops on the Alexandra Wenman show on YouTube as well. And there's crystal videos on there too with little tutorials. But this one, I actually dreamt about this the night before I got it, and I was on retreat in Glastonbury, and I kept having this vision of this crystal with wings and an ankh in the middle. And I was like, what is that? It must be a piece of jewellery. And I thought I was going to design it myself or something. I thought I was channeling an idea for it. And then I had this amazing visitation from the goddess Lakshmi as I was going to sleep. I could audibly hear Indian singing.
Right.
I thought, where's that singing coming from? Because I was in Healing Waters in Glastonbury, and I thought, someone's singing, and it sounded like our friend Ranjana. And I was like, this beautiful classical Indian singing. And it was like someone was actually playing it loud, and I thought, what is that? But I was closing my eyes, and then suddenly I could see all this gold light, and this goddess appeared in golden light with all these lotus flowers around her. And I was like, wow, and I was like, this must be Lakshmi, surely. And she was like, this is I am Lakshmi. And the next day we went to Stone Age to film, to interview Louis at Stone Age, and walked in, and this was sitting on the shelf talking to me. And there's no way I could have afforded it, and I was like chatting to him, and then it ended up one thing after another. We got chatting about some how I'd certified my workshops and things like that, and I started helping with that, and then he gave me this whopping discount. And I was like, well, this didn't want to come home with me at all. Thank you, Lakshmi. Walked up to the counter to pay, and behind Louis' counter is a massive picture of Lakshmi in gold with lotus flowers all around her. So they talk to you, they call to you if you're meant to have them. they'll come home with you like little pets or little friends, and
Yeah.
it would be magical.
And I was very blessed. This one was a gift from a friend of mine, Kathy Dixon's. Was a birthday present, the obsidian, which is again for absorbing negativity and just soaking stuff up. And it's one of those ones that it does fit quite nicely. So there are times when, I like the balance, and because they're both similar in kind of weight and size, that often when I'm working, if I'm really tuning into stuff, I will actually work with both of these, and it just feels like it balances everything out. I can feel the sort of amplification of the energies flowing through.
She got that from Chichen Itza, didn't she?
And she did. This one came
another
from Chichen
sacred
Itza.
site.
So it's again, it feels very attuned to the sacred sites of the earth. And then I've just got I bought my little aventurine skull, which is, well, again, it just called to me. I had no idea. I know you have a huge collection of skulls. I just have the one.
I've got a family.
Yeah. And this one, I don't know. It's
Has he got a name?
No, he doesn't have a name. But what's really funny is because I have a lot of people around me that are, my sister's really into skulls, and a really good friend of mine was really into skulls. I never was so much. I think after meeting Nancy's crystal skull, I became more kind of open to the idea. But this one just looks really happy.
Gorgeous.
and aventurine is such a lovely, light, bright stone anyway. That he had to come home with me.
I think we need to talk about the crystal skulls.
They are quite amazing.
They're quite amazing, and a lot of people, I think, when you first hear about them, when you first see them, I remember thinking, what is the skull thing all about? It's a bit weird.
I'm there.
Are you there? Yeah, it's a bit.
Yeah.
It's like you think, oh, it's a bit macabre, or it's a bit weird. What is it? And I was never drawn to them until I was teaching in Mysteries in Covent Garden one day, and I went downstairs to get some incense for the workshop. And I was standing at the counter, and no joke, this skull, much like you've just said, it literally started talking to me. I could audibly hear it. And I was like, something's talking to me, something's calling to me. And I was talking to Michael, who used to work in Mysteries, and I looked down, and there was a little basket about this big of all these tiny rose quartz, galactic looking skulls. And I looked down, and I knew exactly which one was talking to me. And it said, my name is Jeffrey.
As you do.
My name is Jeffrey, and I would like to come home with you. And I was like, and I looked at Michael and I went, I think I'm going mad. That skull there is talking to me. And I think he was like a tenner, so I bought Jeffrey. And so began a lifelong love of crystal skulls. So they don't all want to come home with me, but they talk to me wherever I go. I now have 15 of them, but they say that there were originally in Atlantis 13 of these crystal skulls. There was an amethyst master skull, and there were clear quartz, well, they were clear, the rest of them that were represented each of the temples, I think, or each of the heads of the lineage of Atlantis. But these crystal skulls are reawakening, and so there's a lot of these crystal skulls around now. But they also say that the human skull, or the shape of the skull, is the house of wisdom, or it mathematically correlates to wisdom. So these skulls, first of all, you have the quality of the crystal that it's made from, and then the fact that it's coming with this higher wisdom. And they have personalities, and all of mine have names, and they've all given me their names, and the names are all these really like almost geeky names, like little mad scientists. So like I've got Jeffrey, I've got Madge, I've got Montgomery. Gemma and I met an amazing one at the Mind Body Soul Expo years ago when we were at Prediction, this massive skull, and true to form his name was Homer. Like this massive lepidolite or something, I think he was, this skull called Homer. They always have I've got Rodrigo and Stefan, and like these all really like kind of, you know, lovely kind of but studious kind of names, like very wise names. And I've got Ernest name. Maybe there is an Ernest coming.
Probably.
I've got ones that are tiny. I've got Barry and Beryl, who are tiny little twin skulls, and you know they're amazing. So if you'll know, because they'll call to you if and when your time comes to work with them. So maybe now you'll see the skulls differently. But I just they're like a family. There's so much love that comes from them. I've taught workshops in them. There's a woman called Kathleen Murray that wrote this amazing book called The Divine Spark of Creation, and she has a skull called Mahatman, And Mahatman is a huge, he looks like clear quartz skull. But I actually think Mahatman might be one of the original 13. I'm actually really goosebumpy while I'm saying this right now. He came to her because a friend of hers, I think, was a crystal trader, and the skull was ordered for somebody else, but they cancelled their order, and he ended up coming to her. She's taken this skull back to Brazil, and all the best top metaphysical crystal skull carvers in the world, and all of them say there is no way this skull could be carved by human hands. Right. It actually looks like he's been moulded in clay. Yeah. And the information she got was that he came through in a portal, and he actually speaks to her. She channels through this crystal, and what she's figured out is that he actually asked her to shine lights, different coloured lights through him. And by shining the different coloured lights through this skull, she was able to channel information from each of the ascended star tribes. So it's, she's now created these cards with Arcturus and Andromeda and Orion and all the ascended star races through this one skull, because he is like a portal. So who knows? I mean, the knowledge is infinite. The crystals hold these wisdom, very akashic wisdom. And who knows, you might begin your own journey with the skulls as well. Anyway, now that we've blown out each other's minds, anything else you guys want to add about?
No, just like when I think it's almost like going back to when I was young, very into the earth, always into rocks. And when I don't mean to laugh, when my first hamster died, it was just so painful to me, the loss of the hamster. So I got a pet rock, and originally he was in a cage. So it was a pet rock in a cage. I had a family of rocks on the rock. I broke the guy out of the cage. He was called Cobble. And I just kept this pet rock for years because it was actually less painful to have a rock in my life.
Wow.
than it was to have a hamster. Yeah. So.
Well, they do outlive us.
Right,
which is amazing.
And I just think, I pick bits and pieces up from wherever I travel in the world.
Yeah.
Andy's always like, do we really have to put?
That's what Tony says.
Do we have to put the rocks?
You bring more rocks in your bag.
Yeah. We're already at the weight limit, and now you're filling up mine with rocks.
I used to do it as a kid, go to the beach and come back with bags of them. My mother would make me leave them at shells as well, but she'd make me leave them at the
doorstep. Never come in with shells, but always, and boulders, and
rocks.
huge rocks.
Yeah.
Well, in the shamanic tradition as well, working with stones and working with rocks, I mean, you would have your speaking stone. So you would find one that you were drawn to, and then you would use it to tune in. So obviously, crystal scrying is another step further, where you actually look into a crystal and actually it helps to open the third eye. But just having that rock, and I've done quite a lot of work with that, where you just ask to tune in, and you can actually work with other people's stones and tune in and get messages for them by tuning into the energy through the essence of the earth stones. There's all kinds of things that you can do with stones and crystals.
Oh, sorry, honey. These ones too, and the salt. Actually, you were talking to me then, weren't you? Yes, you pick me. the salt ones, the selenite and the salt, and also the obsidian. They're very good for offsetting electromagnetic frequency. Yes. And I've seen so much of this lately. We've got all these new dodgy smart meters coming. Don't get a smart meter. Very bad. Lots of EMF. Sorry, government. The EMF is actually barraging us, and we're getting more and more sensitive.
In fact, can you pick my black one over there?
Laurie's got this amazing. Andrea made me something for today, and she couldn't make it.
So this one's shungite. Shungite, and shungite is particularly good for actually diffusing and absorbing the EMF, the radiation that comes through. So I did have a chunk of it that I had stuck to the back of my mobile phone to absorb it, but that bit fell off, so I need to get that reinstated. But and so I wear this pretty much all the time, but I took it off because it's a bit rattly, so with lots of my moldavite. So the shungite is very
shungite.
well.
I was reading about it the other day. I need to get some, but Andrea was making me some anklets out of lavakite, which I think comes from Norway. Wow. And sounds really, really cool. Bit similar to those properties, I think. Like the very grounding, anchoring, but very absorbing and clearing. So any of these, any of your buddies, but yeah, making sure you cleanse them because they absorb a lot of negative energy, and you might notice sometimes as well your crystals can get a bit cloudy. You can sit them in front of your computer, and when I first went to work at Prediction, Marianne, the old editor, had this piece of clear quartz in front of the computer, and the poor little thing was so cloudy. It was like I was like really. Help! We had to give it a cleanse, and then it started getting sparklier again.
Yeah. And you can cleanse it by either washing them, running them under running water, or you can put them out
Salt
water, or you can put them out in moonlight. That will actually sunlight to cleanse them. So yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything we haven't covered with crystals? I think we've
I think the best thing is to just go play. Go, find what resonates with you, find what you like. And
be like a magpie.
Yeah, and then read the book afterwards. Choose the crystal first, or let the crystal choose you, and then go find out about it.
Has anyone put them in water? Because some people put them in water.
Yeah, you put them in your bath. Yeah, you put them in the bath.
Drink them.
Yeah,
water.
absolutely. Put them in your drinking water.
Just make sure they're not toxic though. Some of them, like malachite, can be quite toxic if they've got high copper in them.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put them in your drinking water, then just check.
Yeah, rose quartz particularly is a great one. Just put a little chunk of it, especially if you've got a water jug.
And you can make crystal elixirs as well really easily, like distilled water, sunlight.
Yeah.
A little bit of alcohol. You can find recipes online, I'm sure.
Anyway, hopefully we have piqued your interest, and we invite you to go and explore and share the world of lovely crystals, because they're wonderful things.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So thank you for watching. Thank you for joining Awake Women, and
have a crystalline day.
You said that so quickly next to the thing. Do you know how much trouble
That's
I
all right.
have cutting
Put
that?
it in.
Put it in.
Put it in. Put it in. That's a bit of personality.
Yes.
I put it in as a cutaway at the end.
You can just leave it in.
No, leave it in.
Leave it in. Cool, guys.